Guys, real quick, I'm interrupting this intro because we are at 883 subscribers. 3 days ago, you're like 843. So we jumped 40 subs in like 3 days, which is nuts.
These nuts.
So, I'm sorry, didn't mean to scare you like that, but guys, thank you so much. I had my first video ever get like recommended by YouTube in the first 24 hours. We hit over 1,000 views in 24 hours, which is nuts. So, I just want to take a second and say thank you guys so much. My editing style, I'm trying to make things more funny. I'm trying to make it more engaging because I want you guys to enjoy these videos. So if you have a grin on your face anytime during the video, a smile, you learn something new, you know, consider hitting that like button.
Do it.
It helps me out immensely. Any comments, anything, guys, it really helps the channel. But nonetheless, blah, 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 enough of me. Let's get into today's video. All right, guys. Today's topic, we are going to be doing a full review on the 2005 Mustang V6. Now, this can apply to pretty much all the way through 2010, pretty much through 2009 though, because 2005 to 2009 was the same exact body style. In 2010, they did the refresh. But today's video, I'm going more in depth. I mean, we're touching on everything. Engine, trans, exterior styling, interior, suspension, all of it. So, first off, for the price, would I recommend it? Yes. So let's just get that out of the way. But since we're driving, let's talk about the engine. So this car comes with, from the factory, it's the 4-liter V6. This one, I believe it makes 210 horsepower, 240 torque. Now, in today's day and age, that's really not a ton, right? I mean, you have like Camrys nowadays that are coming out with like 300 horsepower V6s. Obviously, you have the predecessor of this one. I think I'm saying that right. The 3.7, that thing makes 305 horsepower and I think 280 torque. So what is my opinion on this engine? So definitely the torque is the plus with this. Oh goodness gracious, just totally scraped. Torque. This thing, if I'm not mistaken, I believe this engine is very similar to what's found in the Ford Ranger and also the Ford Explorer. I think it has different heads, but this thing definitely makes all of its power down low. This car is bone stock besides an exhaust. Everything else, it's still factory tuned. So take everything I say with a grain of salt. If you have one that's tuned or has cold air intake and other modifications, it will be different. But this car, I would say from around 22 to 2300 RPMs to like 3200, 3300. That's really the sweet spot when you hit peak torque.
Got it.
And that's when it starts to go. After that, it kind of starts to fall flat on its face. Now, if you guys have watched my other videos, you'll know that this, in my personal opinion, is not the car that I would buy if I was going for all-out performance. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't make it fun. I definitely recommend throwing some mods at it, you know? Throw on an intake, gears, exhaust, tune, and guess what? You're gonna have a really fun daily or, you know, kind of a fun weekend car. But all in all, definitely performance-wise, not the best bang for your buck, but it does get up and it does go from light to light. It is also a pretty nimble car. So before we get into that, let's touch on the trans. So this car comes with the 5R55, and I'll be honest, guys, this is a pretty clunky transmission. They're kind of notorious for being crummy, but as long as you're not beating on it, it's quite all right. So at least in my experience with this car, when it's cold, the 2-3 shift, it does not like that at all. It kind of bucks. Almost feels like it's not engaging the clutch, like it'll rev up a little bit and then it'll catch the gear. So that could be a synchro, that could be a bunch of things. Now, I don't know if that's super common. You guys might have heard it right there. Or if that's just, you know, my luck. But driving, cruising, definitely nice. I don't remember exactly what gearing is in this car from the factory. If I had to guess, it's gotta be like a 327, 331 something. It's a longer gear. But this trans, like if you put your foot to the floor, it takes, I'm not exaggerating, like 2 seconds. Now I would do it, but I'm in the neighborhood and that probably would not be the best idea. But it's a little on the clunky side. It's not very responsive. Now a little pro tip, if you guys on the right here, you can't see it. If you click it, there's a little button, it will turn off overdrive. So I don't know if you guys can see on the dash there, now it's lit up. So now it will not go into 5th gear. So you only have 1st through 4th. So when you're cruising at like 45, 50, having the overdrive off, you're going to be right in that perfect RPM range. So if you give it gas, it's going to go. There's really not going to be much hesitation. I usually leave it on just because for fuel efficiency sakes, because right now gas is like $4.40 a gallon. Speaking of gas prices, this car, I average 15.5 miles per gallon, and I do not beat on this car. So if you're someone that's buying this for fuel efficiency, I would suggest looking elsewhere. But let's face it, guys, who buys a Mustang for fuel efficiency? That's something, you know, maybe if you got like an EcoBoost, that would maybe make a little bit more sense. But yeah, no, this is definitely not the most fuel efficient car. Now, can you probably squeeze better MPGs? Absolutely. I drive around the city. I don't ever see highway mileage on this car. So that's why mine's so low. You could probably get it close to the 20 mark. So yeah, engine stout, good torque, trans a little clunky. Wouldn't really recommend it for racing. They do sell, I believe it's called like the TCI Street Fighter, pretty much where you can shift it on your own. Now, I know you can do that already with this, but I don't know why that just, I feel like it's not designed for you just to be slapping it into each gear. The only way I'd ever do that is if I had like paddle shifters or like a sport shift or whatever. So you can't buy that kit for this car, and I've heard a lot of people say that it helps out a lot. It makes it feel more engaging to drive. But in stock form, I mean, you guys can see. Also, ignore my RPM gauge, that's off. So I guess now we'll transition into the interior. Now, for an 05, I think this interior is actually held up pretty well. I think it looks pretty decent. Now, it is very plasticky, like plastic, plastic, plastic. But I think with the retro styling, it just keeps it looking somewhat fresh. Now, this car is a premium package, so that does include the leather seats. It includes the leather, I believe, on the steering wheel. The regular ones come with cloth seats. This one also has the electric seats for like reclining and all the other functionalities. And then it has the Shaker 500 sound system, along with the My Color dash, so I could change the color of the dash. The base models do not include that, but it does not change any differences like with the transmission or the engine. That is all the same. Some things I don't like, I mean, the plastic is not the end of the world, but compared to nowadays where everything is kind of leased like a fake leather, what they call pleather, this definitely is very, very cheap feeling. Now, again, I'm not buying this car for creature comforts. If I was, this would definitely not be the right car, but it's held up. I mean, for being almost 18 years old, I can't complain. I mean, yes, there's a little crack that was on there when I bought the car. Someone had to have like hit that super hard or keyed it, I don't even know. But a few things to note though, the door cards are notorious. It happens to every single one of these cars. It will just peel off on you. It kind of is a bummer because I don't want to really put it back on. You have to like remove all this old adhesive that turns into like cement. So you have to get all that off. That card's about to fall off. They do sell some replacements on eBay that are plastic that just pop in. I'm probably gonna eventually get those because trying to redo that leather is just gonna be a pain in the butt. Another thing is that this plastic right here, it's super prone to scratching. They have like a carbon fiber overlay that I'm gonna get. I think I'm gonna do the Dyna Performance full carbon fiber kit on this car, but that's a topic for another video. Other things, AC and heat works fine. I mean, not that that's anything special for this car, but being that it's 18 years old, I've never had any issues. And I should also add that part right now, is that, guys, in terms of reliability, we're gonna hop into that. This car's been flawless. I have not had to put a penny into it other than like oil changes and extremely basic maintenance. Now, this car only has 54,227 miles, so it's very low mileage. Now, one of the things I have heard from people is that the thermostat housing is plastic, and over time that will degrade and crack. So people recommend, I believe it's like getting it replaced with a metal or an aluminum one. So keep that in mind. But guys, I mean, this thing's been flawless. Even though the transmission's a little clunky, haven't had any issues. I had them check to see if the fuel or the fluid levels were good, and they said it was. So I don't know. Once it warms up, it drives perfectly fine. Other things to mention, it's a relatively inexpensive car to own. I mean, insurance on these is really cheap. Funny enough, this car, I want to say I'm paying, and I have a clean record, so I want to say it's like $400 every 6 months. So it's not very expensive. Granted, if you have a bad driving record, that could be pretty brutal. Now let's talk suspension from the factory. These cars sit obnoxiously high. Same with the new Edges. I'm going to do a video with my Cobra discussing the review. Factory suspension, not so good. You definitely feel a lot of body roll. If you don't know what that means, like when you're taking a corner, the whole car almost feels like it's tilting or tipping in that direction. Another big thing, since we're braking on the hill, on the factory suspension, if you hit your brakes or jab them a little bit, the whole car just nosedives. It feels like the front bumper is going to hit the ground. Now, I don't personally like that feel because this car from the factory comes with what's called a factory rake. So pretend that this is the front of the car. It sits nose down and the back end is up. I think it's about an inch or a half an inch difference, but when you're looking at a side profile, you can definitely tell. Now, I did replace the factory springs. I put in some SR Performance springs. That dropped it about 1.5 inches. That's their claim. I think it was closer to 1 inch, but that did remove most of the factory rake. It still has it a little bit, but not as much. Wheel gap, definitely got rid of a lot of that wheel gap. But the biggest thing, guys, is just how much better and more firm it feels. Now, with doing the lowering springs on these cars, you do want to get the adjustable panhard bar because it will shift the rear end and one wheel will stick out past like your quarter panel, and you don't want that. That looks kind of janky. So with the addition of the springs and the panhard bar, this car does not nosedive whatsoever unless you like absolutely slam on the brakes. We'll take a turn here. Oops, no cop, no stop, right? Just kidding. This is all filmed in Mexico where road things don't, you know, it's all your imagination.
Imagination.
So yeah, performance-wise, no more body roll. I mean, very, very minimal. Like, we'll take this like 30, and I mean, it feels much more planted. Now, this car also does have aftermarket wheels and tires, which are much wider compared to stock. I think the stocks are like a 215/60/15. This is a 20. It's a 305/35/20. So you have a lot more contact patch. And with this car being stock power, I mean, you could pretty much gas it from absolutely a dead stop, and it's gonna hook up. I would be more afraid of hurting the trans if I launched it, so I personally don't race this car. Let's hop out here. We're gonna pull up to an area and we're gonna discuss some of the exterior styling. All right, guys, I had to cut the audio, do a voiceover because it was super windy in there. But in terms of styling, I think this car is absolutely phenomenal. Many would argue this is one of the better body styles. I think it's definitely in the top 3. My personal favorites, the 2013 to 2014s. But I mean, I'll get a lot of people that don't know Mustangs asking and saying, is that wide body? Just because of the body lines, those built-in flares look absolutely phenomenal. As we move around to the side, you guys can see that the stance on this, I mean, it's just everything is gorgeously laid out. Again, those body lines are worth money. I think they're a lot better looking than the S550s, but granted, that's just my personal opinion. And right now we have about two fingers of gap, a little bit less in the front. The back, these cars do come with a single exit exhaust. A lot of people do the dual exhaust upgrade with the GT rear bumper. That is definitely on my list. I have the exhaust ready to go. I just need to get the bumper, but definitely a great looking car. All right, back in the car. So next, let's talk exhaust. So I'm gonna roll the windows down here. Again, I pardon the wind noise if you guys hear any, but this car has the SLP Power Flow exhaust. It's just the single exit. It does not require the dual exhaust. But here, I'm gonna be quiet and you guys can hear it. So that was not all the way to the floor. That was just giving it, you know, I'd say about 75% throttle, just opening it up a little bit. Hopefully you guys can hear the exhaust. It sounds really good. It's nice, it's throaty. These 4.0s, a lot of people, they'll go the cheaper option, which is just removing the exhaust or the muffler itself because it's so easy and it's actually dumped. It points down at the ground. So it's extremely loud if you do it that way. I had a friend in high school that did that, and I mean, it was like ear-piercing loud. Now, me personally, louder is not always better. I prefer to have a nicer tone compared to just all-out volume, and this exhaust really is kind of a happy medium. It's nice and throaty, but you can still open it up. Right around like 3,000-ish is when it just sounds beautiful.
moments later.
To the untrained eye, I've had people ask if it's a GT. It doesn't sound like a V8 to me, but if someone doesn't know, you know, it can catch them off guard and they can go for that. So yeah, guys, I think that's kind of going to be the conclusion of this video of my overall thoughts on, you know, this car, this platform in general. Again, guys, I was editing the video and I almost forgot the most important thing, or not the most important, but one of the most important. When it comes to the interior, there's a very common issue with these. It's that if you notice, right now it says my gas is almost 2 tanks full and that I have 0 oil pressure and that my RPM gauge is negative. These are the stepping motors and they are notorious for just failing from the factory. Now, for a car with 54,000 miles, I really wouldn't expect that to be a thing, but it is. So if you're buying one of these cars and you notice that these are way off, right here, all off, yeah, that's why the car does not actually have no oil pressure and the gas tank is not overfilled. It's just that's how they come. So if you're buying a higher mileage one, expect to run into that. You can't replace it. They sell a kit online on eBay. I think it's like a soldering kit, and you can put in new motors. I just don't feel comfortable enough taking apart the dash. So with these cars, you can actually just go over here, click info, and I can see I have 242 miles until empty, so I'm not overly concerned. Now, if I didn't have that feature, this would really suck, and I'd have to like keep track of my mileage. So, yep, there you guys go. Just wanted to add that part in. It does apply to all the 2005 to 2009 V6s. The 2007 and 2009s, the only real differences, I believe, is the fact that they came with like TPMS sensors in the wheels, which this year does not, and I think they include an aux cable. Other than that, the cars are identical. Again, engine, trans, everything is the same. So if you guys enjoyed this video, if it helped sway you maybe to get one or maybe not to get one, let me know in the comments. Would love to engage with you guys and hear your thoughts on this platform. If you own one, you know, include some information that maybe I forgot, because you know what, it is extremely possible that I forgot stuff. But nonetheless, I appreciate you guys watching this video. If you enjoyed, you know, hit that like button. It helps me out immensely. But nonetheless, I will catch you guys in the next upload. Peace out, fam.